when we think about our problems, it's like the size of an atom, so tiny in comparison to this all powerful being inside of us. What's going on, you guys? We are going to be changing it up a little bit today. I kind of want to see who can track with me. I want to see if the things that I teach outside of my clients to just on YouTube or to any platform, Instagram, Facebook, podcasting, I wonder how people actually think about stuff like this. So let's talk about the sage version of you. Let's talk about the all-powerful, all-knowing version of you that's lying dormant inside of you right now. Okay? Very different topic than I usually talk about. But I'm interested to see who can actually not only understand this from a logical, external perspective, but internally has done some of the spiritual work that's needed to tap into this version of self. So whether you believe this or not, or whether you're in the process of uncovering it for yourself, inside of all of us, there's divinity. Inside all of us, there is a more powerful version of us that we have access to, whether that's us, whether that's universal power, whether that's God, whatever it is, we all have access to it. Now, who's aware that they have access to it and who's unaware, that's a whole different story. Most people in the world right now do not understand that they have access to this power. Most people in the world do not understand that they have access to it at all. And they live their life thinking that they are these humans that just have to live a life, get through the 60, 80 years that they're going to live, and then get buried. That's it. Unfortunately, that is actually what people believe that their life is meant for. When you start tapping into purpose, when you start tapping into this other version of you, that you are meant for something, that you were born for a purpose, that there's something that you have to get done in this one life you have to live, this is where you start leaving the physical body and entering more of the spiritual realm. This is where you start really understanding that there's people that have figured this out. And you'll see how they talk about it. You'll see that they'll bring it up here and there. And for most people, they'll hear it and it'll go over their head. They're going to think that it's just like this, woo-woo thing. But when you actually start getting with the times and you start understanding that there's something bigger at play here, this is where things start to change. This is where life changes for you, because now you understand you're playing a different game. You're no longer playing the game of just going to work, going home, doing it tomorrow. You're no longer just living this surface level life. And now what you seek is the spiritual calling that you have. So back in 2018, when I was in Tahoe, I was feeling extremely lost in life. I was feeling extremely lost, after getting out of the Marine Corps. That was my identity. I was like, who am I now? I started going through some weird thing of depression again. And I was like just drinking all the time, smoking weed all the time, just doing all this stupid shit all the time. So I went to Tahoe and I was like, look, I need to spend time in nature. I need to figure my shit out. There's something wrong with me. And during this trip to Tahoe, all I did was I read this book. It's called To Shake the Sleeping Self. And all I would do when I would wake up is I'd literally sit by the window, looking at the snow, looking at the world, and I just start reading. And I became very intentional with reading every word inside of that book for every chapter I went through. And then I started realizing that I was living my life asleep. I realized that the way I was living my life was so caught in the rat race of life that I forgot how to live with purpose. I forgot how to live with meaning. That got stripped from me because the only way that I've ever known that is through the military. The only way that I've ever learned how to live with mission and purpose was in the military. So to have that no longer part of my life, it was a big, how the fuck do I get through this thing? How does a civilian actually have mission and purpose in life? And that's when I started going deeper into spirituality. Now, at this point, that's when I went through very deep meditation. Okay, very, very deep meditation. If you guys have done like just breathing exercises, just understand meditation can get extremely deep. It can go far deeper than what you even realize right now. What you can tap into far deeper and far more powerful than you can even realize. So, by going into that space, what I found in myself was divinity. And it's very difficult to explain what happens when you can envision it in the mind. Just imagine inside of you, there's infinite space. Inside of you, you're not as big as your body. Inside of you, spiritually, it's forever that way, forever that way, forever that way, forever that way. It's infinite. It's infinite. When they talk about infinite intelligence, infinite everything, it's everything. It's infinite. There's no stopping it. So what I found in Tahoe was there was like this divine presence, this massive, massive. I can't even explain what it looks like. It just this massive being, all powerful, had no fears, no doubts. There was a calmness. There was a chaos. There was something that you would fear, and there was something that you'd trust. And I just remember looking at it in the eyes, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And why is it in me? And as I started talking to it, it didn't even say a word. It's like I was thinking, speaking to it, and it was speaking back to me through understanding. It's like wisdom. And it was a crazy thought conversation we were having. And then I realized that this same being is inside of all of us, that we are all the same. We're basically all living the same way with this thing inside of us. Now, who has access to it and who's aware of it, that's a different story. If you guys want to have a deeper understanding of this, go look up the egg theory on YouTube, the egg theory. It gives a very good visual representation of this. And the biggest thing for me is through this, I realized that all of the things that I worried about in life were all of these human problems, all of these weird things that we stress about in our day to day, people cutting us off on the freeway, people looking at us dirty at the bar, or how we feel about our day, how shitty it feels, that we can just have a backache and it ruins our day, shit like that. That it's just such a waste of a gift to waste any emotional time and space in those negative places when we can, in fact, tap into this infinite source and live a life truly of purpose and meaning. And by spending more time spiritually connecting to this source, the life that you live changes. All the problems that you have in life and business, in self, with marriage, all of it, tiny in comparison to what this being considers. When we think about our problems, it's like the size of an atom. It's so tiny in comparison to this all-powerful being inside of us that has problems of the universe, has problems of infinity, never ending, much larger scale, much larger scale. It's kind of like the Earth versus the universe, Earth versus the galaxy. Even Earth versus the galaxy is not big enough in comparison. So you can imagine what happens is when you start understanding that life is deeper, that you have access to a lot more power than you give yourself permission to even see, or the openness to even consider that there's something different there, you live a very mediocre life. So when people start going through spiritual awakenings, this is where they really start tapping into the source. This is where they really start tapping into something much bigger than them. And when you really go down this rabbit hole of what life is supposed to be, how you're supposed to respond to things now, having this new sense of awareness, for me, I started becoming more peaceful. So just like you guys see here, right, this is wrath. my deadliest sin, wrath. When I started going through this spiritual awakening, um, I don't really get angry too much anymore. It's as if I can feel that emotion, but seeing it from an outside perspective, I can see it from an out of body perspective. When I feel a lot of negative emotions, it's as if I know when to close my eyes and stop and simply just listen, simply just feel, simply just surrender, simply stop trying to control the things I cannot control. And the crazy part is when you live in life and operate from that space, you can do anything because you're not in a rush, you're not attached to an outcome, you're just in a state of being. You're in a state of connection. And you're learning how to trust something much bigger than you. Because if you think about it, all of the things that happen in our lives, let's call it coincidence, all of those random ass things that happen in our lives where it's like maybe we showed up to a random store, okay, or a random gym, and we bumped into somebody that, like, out of anywhere else, we would be like, well, why are we bumping into each other here, and why, like, right now? We can call that coincidence, but think about how many times this happened in your life. Think about all the times in your life where, like, you were falling from the fucking sky and you were about to crash and burn into the earth. And right at the very last second, something just swoops in and saves the day where you don't crash and burn. You think that's coincidence? You don't think that there's something that has caused these events to occur in a sequence, and all you have to do is open your eyes and become aware that everything's happening on purpose? That this is not on accident? Can you imagine what happens if you start looking at life as if it's not just this thing that's happening to you, and that life itself has been written, your purpose and who you're supposed to become is already written? The question is, are you going to find that version of you in this lifetime, in another lifetime? When the fuck are you going to experience it? Are you going to have to reset this whole damn thing and try it again? Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up the egg theory. It's a very interesting thing. Now, I'm not saying I'm the master of all of this. I'm just saying what I've uncovered for myself and what's helped me. All I can say is if this is even at all resonating with you, then you're probably more open and you're probably more awake than you realize. If you're like, what the fuck, dude? You just went a totally different direction. It's not your time yet. Don't worry about it. It gets deeper. And you'll probably come back to this, or you're going to come back to some other episode from somewhere else, and then something's going to click one day for you. I think that for us, once we start tapping into this, once we start tapping into the thing that's bigger than us, when we start tapping into divinity, when we start tapping into whatever it is that's inside all of us, it's very important to remember that the human mind will take you away from it. And it's very important to remember to bring yourself back, because in that space, nothing stops you. In that space, you fear nothing. In that space, you are everything, all things, the good and the bad. And you just accept it and you see it as an experience. And you just see it roll out and play in your mind. You just see life totally different. That now you're out of this spiritual being that's floating outside of you. And you're just watching you be that version of you. And you can make adjustments, you can make tweaks, you can get back on purpose, you can get back on the horse, you can get back on the path that you're meant to walk. This is how you start guiding yourself. But the question is that you guiding you? Or is that something else guiding you? Is that God? Is that the universe? What is this divinity that guides all of us. I guess that's what we have to figure out. I guess that's the whole purpose of this game. Because if we're meant for something, if we know that the fingerprints we have, nobody of the past has ever had them, if we know that the fingerprints we have, nobody in the future will ever have them, and that they're specifically unique to us, then that means there's only an imprint that we can leave in this world. So what is it? What is it? What gift did God, the universe, this higher power, what did it give us? What gift did it give us so we can be who we need to be and leave that mark that only we can leave? Who is that? What is that version of us? What is it going to take to uncover that person? Who are we going to have to unbecome to create space for that person to evolve? What do we have to burn down in ourselves to create the ashes where the phoenix can rise? What is it? When we think about that question, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And you truly believe you're here for a purpose, all your other problems don't really seem that big anymore, do they? Because now you're trying to solve a problem that most people cannot solve. And then what you do is you make it your life's work to figure that out. You make it your life's work to understand what is your purpose. What is God calling you to do? What is the universe calling you to do? What is this divinity that's lying dormant inside of you calling for you to do and calling you to become? The question is, are you going to choose to become it? Or are you going to choose to override and say, that's fucking crazy, bro? There's no way. There's no way. If that's your belief, that's your belief. You just have to consider, are you good with settling for that if you choose to believe that? Or will you find a way to let all the armor down so you can receive whatever gift has been waiting for you? The gift has probably been right under your nose this entire time. So we'll see. We will see. The moment I started tapping into this, everything changed. Life changed. Because I changed. I stopped seeing myself limited as this version of me that was a fuck up, that did nothing good with his life, that almost ended his life, to being a vessel. And being a vessel allows me to serve with purpose. Now, as a vessel, what is my calling? What is my calling for the day? What am I supposed to do? See, that's not me making that decision. It's not me thinking about it. It's me sitting here waiting for the answer. Just like something called me to make this video, here we are. The thing that calls me next, I will do. The word I need to pass, I will pass. And for some reason, again, when you live in that space, your life just completely changes. How fast you achieve what you want in life completely changes because you stop wanting it, so you start attracting it because you are it. It's an entirely different way of living. And it requires you to be open, body, mind, and spirit to all of it. Because when you're closed off, you're just like, no, there's no way. Your mind will follow and your spirit will be shut down. You won't receive. But when you become open to life and you just start receiving, you start being, you stop judging self, and you surrender to whatever it is that's trying to flow through you as the vessel, see what happens. See how your life changes. See how everything washes away that used to bother you. See how much more clarity you have on why you're showing up. See how much more you attract into your life, in all areas when you operate from that place. If something's calling to you, I'll leave you with this. The worst thing that you can do for the world is to silence that calling. When something's calling you to be that vessel, that means it's time now. It's time for you to rise into the next level. There's something bigger for you now. But if you logically shut that down, you are taking a gift from the world that is trying to be passed on through you. When you think about all the hurt and all the pain you've ever experienced in your life, a gift was being forged there. Don't ever mistake it for anything else. So I'm interested to see who received this, who understands it, who downloads it. Where are you at in your journey? Because I'll tell you this, there's also people that don't get this, but they speak it. Those are the people that make it look bad. Those are the people that sound woo-woo. It's too much. It's too much of a front. It's too much of trying to act the part when they actually don't have access at that level. And it's still logical. And you can tell. You can tell when somebody speaks about it that isn't coming from the source. You can tell. And it's always the ones that are too fucking book smart about the whole situation. It's like, you studied too many fancy words. I can tell it's not being channeled from the source. You can tell. But you can also tell when it is from the source. Because it doesn't come from here. You'll know where it comes from. So I'm curious to know who's with me. Since this is a little bit different than what I normally would talk about. Again, something called to me to talk about it today. So here we are. Let me know.